Welcome to Love Light with Dr. Jean Marie Farish. Today, we'll show you how to use the spirit of love and self-worth to improve the connections with everyone else in your life. This program is your weekly gift, and it will keep on giving. You'll see. Now, here's your host, Dr. Jean Marie Farish.
Greetings and a hearty welcome, everyone. I hope you're all faring well. I'm Dr. Jean Marie, your Love Light host, coming to you from the Voice America Empowerment Channel, shining love light into your hearts and homes to inspire and empower you to create a life you love. We are grateful to our listeners worldwide who tune in live and on demand. We have a great show today. Less steps, less stress, living a life you love one step at a time with Rebecca M. Simons and Paul Templer. Have you ever felt like you're on a treadmill, making steps but not moving forward on your path? Do you feel overwhelmed multitasking, trying to do more with less? Do you want relief from stress to live your best life? Stress takes a toll on our overall well-being. Stress symptoms such as insomnia, headaches, depression, irritability can have a severe impact on health. The Mayo Clinic article on stress symptoms, effects on your body and behavior highlights that stress symptoms may be affecting our health, even though you might not know it. You may blame sickness for that annoying headache, your sleeping troubles, feeling unwell, or lack of focus at work. But stress may really be the cause. Stress symptoms can affect your body, thoughts, feelings, and behavior. And knowing common stress symptoms can help you manage them. Stress that's not dealt with can lead to many problems such as high blood pressure, heart disease, stroke, obesity, and diabetes. Therefore, being aware, knowledgeable, and taking steps to manage your life can profoundly affect your overall well-being. And possible management tips may include getting regular physical activity, practicing relaxation techniques, keeping a sense of humor, spending time with family and friends, reading a good book, listening to music, going for a walk, scheduling time for your passions, even writing in a journal, getting enough sleep, eating a healthy, balanced diet, and disengaging from unhealthy habits. And I think it's important for us to know when it's necessary to see a healthcare provider if symptoms persist. And our outstanding guests today, Rebecca M. Simons and Paul Templer, are exemplary in courage, conscientiousness, perseverance, resilience, and passion. Authors of the international bestseller, Marked for Life, Finding Grace and Grit Where You Least Expect It. They are a powerful combination with passion, knowledge, wisdom, optimism, and gaining inner strength to deal with adversity. And they're here to help us, empower us, and to create a life we love. Rebecca M. Simons has a master's degree in theology and founder of Blissfully Living, LLC. She grew up in rural Wisconsin and now calls Chicago home. Rebecca has over 2 decades of experience leading small groups, workshops, teaching, and speaking. She is a firm believer that despite life being painful and hard, we are created for goodness, purpose, and to be our most awesome, authentic selves. Paul Templer grew up in Zimbabwe, Africa. Adventurer, entrepreneur, philanthropist, speaker, and neuroliteracy expert who believes that anything is possible and that gratitude, kindness, and love are superpowers that we all possess and that we have the power to utilize them at will if we choose. So now I am honored to bring forth our guests today, Rebecca M. Simons and Paul Templer, on our show today. Less steps, less stress, living a life you love one step at a time. Welcome, Rebecca and Paul, to our show today.
Thanks.
Thanks, Gene. It's lovely to be back.
Yes, thank you so much. You both have a knack for breaking things down with simplicity and relatability that's so practical, inspirational, and encouraging. And I am so grateful, and I'm sure our listeners are, for this outstanding and empowering episode. And I would like to just, for our listeners' sake, for you to just share what inspires or highlight what inspires your passion and purpose.
For me, it's really life itself and everybody's story, learning about people and the things they've been through and what they overcome. I, as you mentioned, have a master's degree in theology, but lately I've really been diving into the world of neuroplasticity, and that's the brain's ability to change its neural networks. And so I've been taking classes and sinking my teeth into that. And I've realized what a gift the plasticity of our brain is. And with that, how we can help ourselves to live the life that we were created to live and find our authentic self. And so that's really become a passion of mine.
I just love that. Learning is lifelong, and I am really amazed that you're delving into this new topic here on neuroplasticity. And perhaps you can highlight some things later on in the show in terms of how, it's relatable to our episode. And Paul, what about you?
Gene, I'm the other side of the coin. I think I'm just incredibly curious, and I've spent my life growing up. I grew up in an environment, in a family. The schooling I went to was focused on taking care of myself and others. I went to a Jesuit high school, and the whole theorem, the whole focus was for the greater glory of God and the betterment of mankind, of humanity. And so as I've stumbled through life, and sometimes life gets lighty. It can get pretty tough sometimes. I got really curious about why it was, or how it was, that some people could navigate whatever life threw at them with equanimity and grace, and why some people couldn't. And because I did never for a second consider that we all want to show up fully in life. We all want to show up and take care of ourselves and each other in life. And so what was getting in the way of some people doing so, and what supported others doing so, that just became the focus of my life's passion.
Paul, that's so interesting. Your inquiry and curiosity that really led you to where you are now, in addition to our life experiences that point the way to dealing with challenges, and how it helps us really become more authentic with ourselves and to really work on creating our best life. Now, you both chose this episode title, which I think is so interesting and relatable and relevant in today's time. Talk about the impact of stress, why it leads to overwhelm, and was there a time in both of your lives where you had a lot of stress? And I know I'm asking a lot of questions here. What led to your transformation?
Right. So maybe I can jump in here to begin with, Gene. So not as a means of qualification, but more just to show the listeners where I'm coming from. So if we want to talk about stressful situations that I've had to navigate that actually informed a lot of the research we've done and a lot of the work we do, I'll just go off the top of my head. Grew up in a war zone, lived through a divorce with my parents. I got attacked by an enraged hippopotamus one day at work and lost my arm. I got married and then unfortunately became a product of divorce myself. I buried my 15-year-old daughter who died during COVID. She had a seizure and died. And that's just the greatest hits, if you want. So I've had, as has every single person listening to this call, I've had my share of adversity. And I've lived through the stress that's associated with each of those situations. But what I learned through each of those that I think is both uniformly and universally applicable is that we all have stuff that happens to us.
Yes.
We do. And, we get to choose what happens next. We have the capacity. It's not the events of our lives. It's our response to those events in those lives that inform how we feel, how we act, how we show up. And so I think that's what's really been driving my passion for this conversation. And when it comes specifically to, and Rebecca is the expert here when it comes to neuroliteracy, but when it comes to applied neuroplasticity, or neuroliteracy as I like to call it, I think the experience, you asked for a specific transformative experience. I remember the day I'd been working and looking at a lot of this research for probably close on 20 years. And on looking at when stuff happens, what gets in the way of us choosing what happens next, or what informs and supports that? And it was a morning when my phone rang, and I picked up the phone, and I was told that my daughter had just died. And I can just remember, like, the world stopped. And I felt a degree of devastation and despair that I didn't know was possible. And pain and all of these conflicting emotions that I think are entirely natural in that situation. And then I had a moment of pause, and I thought about my daughter who was still alive, who was a couple of years older, and my son who was still alive, who was a couple of years younger, and Erin, my daughter who died's mother, and what they must be going through. And I thought at that moment, I get to choose what happens next. I have to choose how I'm going to show up in support of taking care of them, because that's who and what I truly care about. That's a great idea, but when you've got your body reacting to stress and fear and despair and everything that goes with finding out about the death of a loved one, our brain starts reacting. So all sorts of neurochemistry, neurophysiology comes to play. The body reacts, the brain reacts, the mind reacts. But fortunately, I knew how to control that. And I knew that I needed to get out of the limbic system of my brain, which is the fight or flight, freeze or fawn part of my brain. And I needed to get into the prefrontal cortex or the neocortex, like the executive function, the rational thinking part of my brain. And I knew that the way to do that was to activate a productive neural network. So I sat there and I took a breath and I thought about my daughter Erin and what I was grateful for about her. Mm-hmm. And you know what? You can't be grateful and grumpy. You can't be grateful and devastated at the same time. And I got an inkling of what I was grateful for Erin about. And then I pictured a time when I was grateful with her, and I pictured what that felt like. Because I know that we have neurological levels. I know that there's the cognitive level, so thinking about it, the story. There's the visceral level, it's the feeling into the emotion. There's the physiological element. I'd noticed where gratitude lived in my body. And you know what? Before long, I had hacked my way from despair into, okay, now I can show up in a way that's of service of who and what I care about. It doesn't mean that I'm not terribly sad at the loss of my daughter, but it meant that I didn't have to be debilitated and make the suffering of my son, my ex-wife, and my other daughter worse. So I think for me, that was the transformative moment. It was the realization that, because I couldn't really imagine anything worse that could happen to me. And I thought, if I can find a way that is scientifically validated and easy to repeat, to shift from despair to hope, from being grumpy to being grateful, then that seems to be something worth pursuing.
Paul, that is such powerful insight. And I must say, I am sorry for the loss of your daughter. And I know there are many listeners out there who are dealing with grief, with the loss of loved ones. And, as you indicated during COVID, there's a lot of changes and transitions and death. So, our heart goes out to you and to our listeners who are dealing with grief and especially, loss of loved ones and the loss of a child. And your insight and your transformative story in terms of how, you have the scientific aspects that you explained about what's happening to us during these times when we're stuck. And you lifted yourself out of this thinking about others and that type of generosity and your love, your gratitude, which I referred to earlier in terms of your work, that we have the power to utilize gratitude, kindness, and love at will if we choose. And that's exactly what you did. So thank you so much for sharing your story. I'm sure listeners out there can relate to it. We all have stories and we all can see ourselves in each other's stories. So thank you for sharing that. And I really look forward to hearing more about these techniques and things that can help our listeners get unstuck and de-stress when going through hard times. And when we come back from a break, we're going to have Rebecca to share her experiences or what transformed her life that moved her on this journey to create a life that she loves. It's time for a brief commercial break, so don't go away. We will return shortly with more on less steps, less stress, living a life you love, one step at a time, with our outstanding guest, Rebecca M. Simons, founder of Blissfully Living, LLC, and Paul Templer, adventurer, entrepreneur, philanthropist, neuroliteracy expert. They are both co-authors of the international bestseller, Marked for Life, Finding Grace and Grit Where You Least Expect It. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Announcing Dr. Jean Marie Farish's new book, Love Mastery Devotion Journal, 21-day weekly prompts and affirmations. This is the companion piece to Dr. Farish's best-selling book, Living in the Spirit of Love, Our Natural State of Being. Through the new book, we invite you to cultivate a lifestyle of love through daily devotional practices over a 21-day period, following 9 ingredients in the recipe of love. Love Mastery Devotion Journal, 21-day weekly prompts and affirmations is available on Amazon.com and Balboa Press.
Jean Marie Farish's Center for Conscious Loving, LLC, cultivates a lifestyle of love and wholehearted connections through personal growth, altruistic services, and speaking engagements. Resources include classes, workshops, life care coaching, and creative service projects with an emphasis on cultural arts. Visit the website at drjeanmariefarish-consciousloving.com. That's drjeanmariefarish-consciousloving.com, or click the link on the Love Light show page.
Best-selling authors international news honors best-selling authors around the globe. Dr. Jean Marie Farish is featured in the newly released issue of Published magazine. To have first access to this treasured resource, go to publishedmagazine.com. Vicki Winterton and Dr. Jean Marie Farish have compiled a dynamic book, We're All in This Together, Embrace One Another, an anthology with 24 highly diverse co-authors who share how to spread the message of love, resilience, inclusivity, and compassion. This book is an invaluable source of uplifting, inspiring, and positive insights for spreading positivity in the world. We're All in This Together, Embrace One Another is available on Amazon.com. Be sure to get your copy today. Follow Voice America at Facebook.com/Voice America for juicy updates from your favorite radio shows and podcasts.
You are tuned in to Love Light with Dr. Jean Marie Farish. Feel free to connect with our program through email or check out our links on Facebook. Reach Jean at Jean72Farish@yahoo.com. That's Jean72Farish@yahoo.com. And now, back to Love Light.
Welcome back to Love Light, Living in the Spirit of Love. If you're just joining us, we are with Rebecca M. Simon. She's the founder of Blissfully Living, LLC, and Paul Templer, adventurer, entrepreneur, philanthropist, neuroliteracy expert. On our show today, less steps, less stress, living a life you love, one step at a time. And they are authors of the international bestseller, Marked for Life, Finding Grace and Grit Where You Least Expect It. Well, Paul, thank you so much for sharing your story and what led you on your transformational journey. So now I'd like to hear from Rebecca. Rebecca, when you started talking about this, you playfully made fun of Paul not needing to take 20,000 steps to produce the results he desired. What's behind that? Can you say more?
Sure. So I am a more succinct, straight to the point, less steps, maybe lazy person than Paul is. He likes to, and I think I can say likes to, participate in ultra marathons. So I'm literally talking about steps here. And he's participated in the Marathon des Sables with 3 times, which is self-sufficient, which means you carry everything you need or are going to consume, multi-day race through the Sahara Desert. So it's extreme conditions, intense heat, sandstorms. You cover about 250 kilometers. So that's about 6 marathons. And there's, no running water, no hotel bed at the end of the day. You just sleep in this bivouac in the sand. And the physical and mental prep for the Marathon des Sables is intense. It's this constant mind game of questioning and making decisions and then changing your mind about how to train, what to pack, how to feel your body. And we do this together. As Paul mentioned, he was attacked by a hippo and lost one of his arms. So I help in his Marathon des Sables prep, especially with vacuum sealing food and tracking the food contents, because you have to submit all of this prior to the race. And what ends up happening is Paul can kind of lose sight and get consumed by these 20,000 steps. And he'll end up buying 13 different kinds of socks and 9 different energy bars and different solutions for chafing and joining Facebook groups. And finally, the 3rd year, I said, I can't live through this kind of MDS prep again. It's too much for me. It's too intense. I'm not even running through the Sahara Desert, but the prep is too intense for me. So I was like, I want a t-shirt at the end that says I survived Marathon des Sables prep. So he does this amazing race in these horrible or intense, I call it horrible, intense conditions. And so really what he ended up doing the 3rd year was he got a trainer and a coach, stuck to a meal plan, tested clothing and shoes prior, with enough lead time out from the start time. And what we realize is you don't have to go through all of these 20,000 steps. You just take small intentional steps and keep the main thing the main thing. Don't get lost or consumed by trivial things. It's so easy for us to go down rabbit holes, right? Something pops up on your phone, on your Instagram, whatever it is. And you can get lost in that. Keeping the main thing helped him, and I think can help all of us to absolutely crush whatever it is we're going after. And that's what I mean about taking, less steps and getting to where you want to go. It's just a little more direct route.
I love that because, we're kind of taught to take steps and be analytical and break it down. And I love that analogy. We don't have to take so many steps. Be intentional about what we would like to accomplish. I just love that. Paul, I guess that really kind of set the tone for a new way of kind of looking at your passion and preparing for your various rendezvous and endeavors, right?
It has changed the way that I prepare for races and actually enjoy them a lot more.
I can imagine.
As much as I was loath to admit it. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thank you so much, Rebecca, for sharing that. Now, coming back to our topic, and you really pointed to, it's not necessary taking so many steps. But less steps, less stress. Why do you think people complicate their lives by taking on too much? Or do you think that it's such a misconception? And, we're so stressed, just obsessed with stressful lives. And we compound stress by taking so many steps and then dealing with transitions of life, loss and change. Talk about the less steps, less stress for our listeners to really make it less complicated so that they can understand what that really means and how they can employ that in their lives.
Jean, and I'm wary of sounding overly simplistic here, but if you look at the world as we know it today, we're just bombarded from every angle. Social media, mainstream media, all sorts of media, the opinions and assessments of our friends, our colleagues, the stories we make up. It's just this nonstop barrage of data and information coming at us. And a lot of it, if you think, just think of the advertising industry, billions and billions of dollars spent globally. If you think about it, essentially, that are pointed at us not feeling like we're enough, like we're good enough. You need this pair of shorts, this pair of glasses. You need to take this medication. So if you think about it for a moment, there's this constant state of not enough getting produced. And that sounds cute when we look at it just as a narrative. But when we look at what's actually getting activated when this happens, is, okay, I'm not enough. That triggers my hippocampus, my amygdala, the part of the brain that's focused on survival, which then means a whole lot of counterproductive neural networks get activated. And then there's a psychological, a neurological, and a physiological impact. So we get knocked out of coherence, which means we're less able to rationally interpret everything that's coming at us. And because there's preponderance of information coming at us, it leads to overwhelm. If you look at how quickly the world has evolved in just the last 20 years as a result of the advent of technology, our brains just haven't been able to keep up. And brain, synonymous with body, synonymous with mind, synonymous with self. We're not designed to keep up with the world the way it's moving at the moment without adding new practices in that enable us to build the muscles to be able to navigate this world. So it's not more complexity, because this complexity is leading to the problem. And technology in and of itself isn't the solution either, because if you look at a lot of the way technology interacts with us as humanity, it's basically triggering our reward system. So it's really messing around with our dopamine and serotonin levels, which again is leading to shifted neurological development. And just everything around us at the moment, and I don't want to sound like that crazy conspiracy guy, but a lot of what's going on around it is not conspired to help us.
So true. Rebecca, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that people do take on a lot, whether it's because of self-imposed, ideas of what they're supposed to or should do, or if it's influenced by, society, family, culture, religion, instead of really, and this is why I am passionate about trying to discern or help people discern who you're created to be and who you authentically are. So if you can shut that noise out, the other voices, I'll say, I think that if you can't do that, that can lead to a very stressful life.
So true. Trying to be perfect, people pleasing, just multitasking. I know I was trained multitask, do more, get things done. And, it really leads to overwhelm. So, and I love, Paul, what you were saying about simplicity, because that's what it's about, the return to simplicity, because everything can be so complicated. And, the whole concept of not being good enough, you're not even lack of worthiness because of what you're expected to do. And you're not really being authentic and true to yourself.
Absolutely. And, Jean, when you spoke at the beginning, you spoke about the cumulative effect of stress. You talked about, I didn't take notes. I'm going off recollection because I was thinking, Jean's describing allostatic loads. It's the cumulative effect of stress on society. And if we look at the allostatic loads, the research points that they've never been higher than they are amongst people at the moment. And the way that manifests, and you spoke to a lot of this, sleep disturbances, people being irritable, impaired social functioning, occupational function, people feeling overwhelmed by the demands of daily life. We're seeing this all around.
Yes, we're at a breaking point. And what are your guiding beliefs and principles for your life to live a stress-free life? I know our listeners are waiting to hear that because, daily you're compounded with one stressor at a time. And then, of course, unexpected challenges that that happen, and you have to deal with that. So what are guiding beliefs and principles for our listeners that help you live a stress-free life?
So I think, the beautiful place to start with is every single person listening to this conversation, and the three of us, we all have something in common. And that's we have these beautiful bodies and minds that are designed to actually take care of ourselves. And so, yes, there's a lot of external and environmental factors come into play. But the bottom line is our body was designed to survive and thrive. And so we all have the ability to slow down the game. And unfortunately, it doesn't always equal the easy button. There's some fairly simplistic, straightforward life hacks, if you will. Am I getting enough sleep? Am I drinking enough water? Am I getting some exercise? And we've all heard these 1,000 times. Why is it that many of us struggle to engage with these practices that we know will help us and will reduce stress? Well, that's an easy one because our minds and our brains aren't always our friends. So how do we hack that? Well, there's some real easy biohacks there too. If we want to reduce our stress, bottom line is it is psychoneurophysiologically impossible. Like you just cannot do it. You cannot be grateful and grumpy at the same time. I invite anyone to try it. You can't. And the beautiful thing is where you put your attention, that's where your energy goes. So simple practices like, you know what, let me wake up in the morning and focus on a few things that I'm grateful for. And actually take the time to do it and to acknowledge it and to see what it feels like. This activates a bunch of neural networks that have us set up to engage newly in the world. There's a certain orientation. As we move through life, we start making smarter choices. And we take the time to develop practices that we know are going to take us where we're trying to go. I'll give you a great example. So I know that despite all the practices I have, there are going to be times when I'm going to get really stressed out, like something's going to happen that I didn't foresee. My body's going to react, my neurochemistry is going to go haywire, and I'm going to respond a certain way. Fortunately, people have been doing research on this for a long time. And back in the 1930s, in fact, they were looking at this. And this practice called physiological sighing. It's like the coolest, simplest practice of all. But again, I'll invite anyone listening to the call to try this the next time they're stressed. And I defy you to tell me that you're stressed afterwards, because it's literally physically impossible not to alleviate a large degree of stress. And it's as simple as this. You get stressed. Oh, hey, I'm stressed. You acknowledge it.
Yes.
You inhale once through your nose, then you inhale again through your nose. So it's 2 inhale, which fills the alveoli in your lungs. So that starts processing the carbon dioxide. And then you exhale once through your mouth. You do that exercise a couple of times, you've recalibrated your parasympathetic nervous system. You've now reactivated your frontal cortex, and you've got a chance at making a smarter decision. So when you ask how we live stress-free lives, I don't think I would say we live stress-free lives, but we find ways to set ourselves up to win and succeed and not get caught up in kind of the machinations of what's currently described as stress.
I love that, the practice, and I think that listeners can tune in and really get into the practice that you share, because that helps us kind of take a pause and reset. So thank you so much for sharing that. And I know you both have your passions, and a lot of times when we are so stressed, we lose sight of things that we enjoy doing. So when we come back from break, I'd like for you to talk about things that you do to keep inspired. You make time for those things that you enjoy. But right now, I think we're ready for another break. So listeners, stay tuned for more with Rebecca M. Simons. She's the founder of Blissfully Living, LLC, and Paul Templer, adventurer, entrepreneur, philanthropist, neuroliteracy expert. They are authors of the international bestseller, Marked for Life, Finding Grace and Grit Where You Least Expect It. On our show today, less steps, less stress, living a life you love one step at a time. Stay tuned. We'll return shortly.
Dr. Jean Marie Farish is proud to announce the release of her new book, Living in the Spirit of Love, Our Natural State of Being, available now at Balboa Press. This book will help you master your life and flourish in love. You'll learn how to become a better and more evolved you. Feel good by making life-affirming choices. Deepen your feelings and expressions of love. Tune in love and sustain the change. And flourish in love and find your joy. Visit BalboaPress.com and search for Living in the Spirit of Love and enjoy Dr. Farish's new book today.
I'm Judy Satori. I'm a spiritual channel and activator of human potential. You might have heard me speaking on Voice of America on Dr. Jean Farish's show, Love Light, because I've been speaking about the challenges that are besetting all of us right now and how we can surrender but also keep on going. I want to invite you to join my new Facebook group that is devoted to heart-centered connection and unity. Through this Facebook group, you can also join my free access question and answer session with Spirit on the first Wednesday to Thursday of every month. Just search Ascension Community on Facebook to join the group. In this session, I answer questions and transmit energy from Spirit to give you guidance and support. Because life on planet Earth ain't easy right now. And there is so much help from above, from beings of love and light, from multidimensional realities who are actually here with us, wanting to step up and support us. I welcome you to become part of our ongoing group conversation about evolutionary change and how it's affecting us as human beings and affecting our life today. Many blessings to you. You can find out more about me and my work at www.ascensionlibrary.org. Have a wonderful day.
Announcing Dr. Jean Marie Farish's new book, Love Mastery Devotion Journal, 21-day weekly prompts and affirmations. This is the companion piece to Dr. Farish's best-selling book, Living in the Spirit of Love, Our Natural State of Being. Through the new book, we invite you to cultivate a lifestyle of love through daily devotional practices over a 21-day period, following 9 ingredients in the recipe of love. Love Mastery Devotion Journal, 21-day weekly prompts and affirmations is available on Amazon.com and Balboa Press. Best-selling authors international, news honors best-selling authors around the globe. Dr. Jean Marie Farish is featured in the newly released issue of Published magazine. To have first access to this treasured resource, go to publishedmagazine.com.
It's your world. Motivate, change, succeed. VoiceAmericaEmpowerment.com.
You are tuned in to Love Light with Dr. Jean Marie Farish. Feel free to connect with our program through email or check out our links on Facebook. Reach Jean at Jean72Farish@yahoo.com. That's Jean72Farish@yahoo.com. And now, back to Love Light.
Well, welcome back to Love Light, Living in the Spirit of Love. If you're just joining us, we are with our outstanding guest, Rebecca M. Simons. She's the founder of Blissfully Living, LLC, Paul Templar, adventurer, entrepreneur, philanthropist, neuro-literacy expert. They are co-authors of the international bestseller, Marked for Life, Finding Grace and Grit Where You Least Expect It. On our show today, less steps, less stress, living a life you love, one step at a time. So thank you, Paul. Before break, you shared those really insightful techniques to help our listeners. And Rebecca, I know during break we were talking about things that you do to inspire passion and to find enjoyment in life, because so many people are overwhelmed with stress. They've lost the passion for life. So can you both, or can you share what you do to bring back the passion and enjoy your life?
Yeah, I think I have two major practices. I mean, just aside from I have a sort of morning ritual of getting up and having prayer time and quiet time and all of that to fuel myself before the day kicks off. But I also think I engage in what I call heroic self-care, not heroic suffering. And then
I love that.
micro tasks. So those are kind of my two go-tos. And I'll talk about heroic suffering first. And that, we've all heard that adage of put on your own oxygen mask first. And I hear, and I don't know if I'm at the age where I'm just like, I don't care anymore. You hear so many people, I have to, for my spouse, for my boss, for my kids, for my parents, for all of these other things. And you become the absolutely last person, if you even make the list, that you're doing things for.
Yes.
And it is great to be of service to others, 100%. I think we are here, to help make each other's life better and to help the world, advance others as best we can. But we don't need to be heroic sufferers. And if we instead engaged in heroic self-care, I think we could eliminate a lot of regret and resentment that we carry around with us, because we're going to benefit not only those people that we love and care about, or the stranger at the grocery store, or whoever it is that we might snap at, or the drivers on the road. We're going to feel filled up in our soul. We're going to feel fed and fueled if we're taking care of ourselves. And I don't mean, I don't mean like go spend $300 on a spa day or take a trip to Italy, which those are amazing things to do for sure. But what I mean is I just find moments every day that will ignite a spark of joy in your life. So that could mean you force yourself, it doesn't matter what's happening, you go outside for 10 minutes and take a walk, yes. Get to the gym, you take a bath, you meditate, you engage socially with friends or family. It doesn't have to be these massive endeavors. It's simply a 5 or 10 minute shift, and then that fuels you up for a little bit. And I think that really helps to change a person's perspective and how he or she will engage with others in the world. The other thing I mentioned was the use of micro tasks. So those are little, small, achievable bits of kind of projects or an endeavor that you're taking on. So it's sort of like, well, how do you climb Mount Everest? One step at a time. That's how you climb Mount Everest. Not that I have. But what's interesting is when confronted with a task, our brains, we don't know we're doing this, we automatically assess and determine if this task is worth pursuing and exerting the brain power and the anticipated mental effort that is needed to achieve success. And if our brain assesses that's not worth it, that's where we start to procrastinate. We start to say, oh, I'll do it later. I'll do it next week. I'll make that phone call, whatever it is. We keep pushing it down the list. And that becomes stressful because you're delaying it. I don't know if you've ever gotten a situation like that. You're like, if I would have just done this 2 weeks ago, it would have been much easier, right?
Yes.
So instead, just microtask that out. And what that does is it allows our brain's natural reward system to trigger a release of dopamine, which is a great neurotransmitter because it gives us pleasure and motivation. And that release of dopamine when we finish a microtask, so it can be really a small thing. We finish the microtask, we get a shot of dopamine in our brain. It makes us feel good. And then we're motivated to continue to keep completing those small tasks because we want that pleasant feeling again. And that feels much better than procrastinating, right? I think. Me, it does.
Yeah.
And so it's like, yeah, okay, I can do that. And sometimes for me, it's really silly things. I was even teasing Paul earlier today. I was like, I unloaded the dishwasher, But some days some days you get to the end of the day and you're like, I am not unloading this dishwasher.
It's true. Simple things.
It's just like, all right, I did that. You know what? Now I'm going to do, and it kind of builds up and up. For me, it does, because it's such a hit of dopamine. It feels great.
Rebecca, I love that because so often we feel compelled to do these tasks over and over and over. And we feel guilty if we don't. We have these expectations of ourselves. And you both have shared, how, we can simplify life, make a choice. If you don't want to do it, you don't have to. Why do we feel obligated, right? And I really love what you shared, creating a morning ritual to get started and fuel your day. I love that.
One of the things, when I was listening to Rebecca talk, one of the things I love about when she talks about microtasking is what she pointed at there was the making an effort, and the effort leads to the production of the reward trigger. She spoke about the dopamine response. I think what's important for us all to realize, just with the way everything is evolving, is not all dopamine is the same. Every time my phone goes ping or I'm scrolling on Facebook, I'm getting a dopamine hit. But the lack of effort that is associated with that leads to different neurological development. When I make an effort and I do something and I achieve a response, the hit of dopamine has a compound effect in that starts building our capacity for resilience. So when Rebecca talks of those microtasks, it's associating them with a degree of effort. And I think that's what's falling between the cracks at the moment. The way to live a life with a lot less stress, a lot of these tasks take effort. They're not easy, but they're easier than living with the impact of stress. I think of, you asked for some of the things we do. There's something as simple as flip the script. Now, Rebecca and I are married, and I'm sure like many married couples, we don't always see eye to eye about everything. I have days where I get up and I look at Rebecca and I'm like, you have got to be kidding me. And when that happens, I know it's time to flip the script.
Yeah.
Because I know that I adore Rebecca. I know I love her. She loves me. But that doesn't sometimes get me caught up in a counterproductive narrative. So my personal way of flipping the script is I will go and buy her some flowers. We'll go and take an action. And whilst I'm doing that, I'll think about the reasons I'm grateful for her and how much I appreciate it. And you know what? It's really hard to be grumpy with someone when you're feeling grateful towards them. But it takes an action. So I'll invite anyone, anytime you're peeved or irritated or frustrated or feeling sorry for yourself, look for how do I flip the script. And you're probably seeing a theme here is we're using our mind to change our brain. because we now know that our brains are plastic. And we truly do get to choose what happens next. We can no longer live out of the narrative that's just who I am, because it doesn't have to be. And stress truly is optional.
I love that, flipping the script. That's simple. And it shifts your whole mood and your outlook, whether you're alone or with others or whatever. I love what you said. That's so lovely, how you flip the script, and gosh, that changes everything.
It really doesn't. And the beautiful thing, and Jean, this is the one thing I love about your show, is to me, when I listen to your shows, to your different guests, there seems to be the central theme of love and people living from a position of choice and optionality, and having agency in their lives, and living with dignity and moving with grace.
Yes.
And what I love is each of your guests brings a slightly different cut at that, but we're all saying the same thing, is we have that innate capacity to live into and out of that space.
I love that. It's a matter of choice. First of all, you have to be aware, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you both talked about even the scientific aspects of, gratitude and, just shifting your mood and, finding that joy and being in that space of love and gratitude. It doesn't have to be that complicated. Like me, I'm like Rebecca. I always have my morning ritual to start my day. And nature is my dopamine. I love gardening, getting in the dirt, planting something, enjoying it grow, just connecting with nature, simple things, And I think, like you said, both of you indicate that you have to know when you're at that point where you need to shift.
Absolutely. And again, going back to the theme here of kind of less is more, the elegant simplicity of this. If we look at the core tenets of neuroliteracy, you just spoke about self-awareness. So step one, self-awareness. How do I cultivate that? How do I become more self-aware? And we know that there are practices for that, the daily meditation practice, a walk in nature. Then it's self-regulation. So self-awareness, step one. Self-regulation, step two. Okay, when I see I'm doing something that isn't working for me, cut it out.
Yes.
When I know it's time to flip the script, flip the script. When I look for an opportunity to be grateful, actually go and do it. If things are difficult, do what Rebecca said. Let's break it down into micro tasks and let's do it. And that's the self-regulation, self-management. Because if we get those three in line, self-aware, self-regulate, self-manage, there's very, very little we can't accomplish.
And ultimately, we are in charge of ourselves, and we can make choices to create a life that we love. Now, both of you, how can we access your services and your book before we close out?
Yeah, the book is you can get that on Amazon. You also on Audible, it's great. So if you're outside on your walk or traveling on an airplane, it's on Audible, so you can grab it there. And then I'm probably best to connect with on Instagram at Rebecca M. Simons, and Paul's website is probably the best way to get in touch with him. Just his name, paultempler.com.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for being on Love Light today. We'd love to have you back. You have truly inspired us with your wisdom, knowledge, and those simple, practical tips to help us manage stress and create a life we love. Thank you so much for your knowledge, even the common sense, practical ways to really get through life and deal with tough situations. So thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Jean.
Mm-hmm.
Jean, thank you.
Okay. Yes, we invite our listeners to tune in on demand, share our show with others, connect with Rebecca and Paul to learn more. Much gratitude to the Voice America team for making this show a reality and for shining their love light around the world. I'd like to close out with this excerpt on balance. Balance the scales of life. Care for yourself inside and out. Live in moderation and do not overextend yourself. Seek a healthy balance in self-care, work, and relationships. Let nothing be done with selfish ambition. Be disciplined with wisdom, grace, and humility. Live practically. Be content and rest when you're weary. Bring harmony, peace, and restoration to your entire being. Thank you so much for joining us today. This is Dr. Jean Marie, your Love Light host, coming to you from Voice America. And until we meet again, remember, an empowered self is a loving self. And keep your love light shining. Thank you so much for tuning in, and much gratitude to Paul and Rebecca for being on our show today.
Thank you for listening to Love Light this week. Be sure to join Dr. Jean Marie Farish again for another program next Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific Time and noon Eastern Time on the Voice America Empowerment Channel. Have a wonderful week filled with love, self-worth, and better connections.